Hi there, Mike Dyer with Talent Management. Jumping on today to share with you a webinar that several members of our team and I recently watched that revolved around the idea of how we lead during uncertain times. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely feeling the uncertainty and the rapid pace of change going on in the world around us today. The host of the webinar, Patrick Lencioni, did a great job of breaking down this large topic of leading into three key elements, which can be applied both in our personal and professional lives. We wanted to make this content a bit more digestible for you and wanted to support you as you're breaking up some of your work from home activities. So we've put together a quick 2.5 minute clip from the webinar today, in which Patrick will introduce the first of the three elements. And then we'll be joined by Jen Savage and Jeff Nelson. And they're gonna walk us through the ways in which they're applying this element in their own lives. We'll be back with the other two elements in time, but for now, let's go.
Now, how are you leading your organization? Because I saw like you have a very vibrant organization at the Table Group. I have pleasure to meet Cody and Amy and a lot of people on your team. What is the message that you, as a founder and president of the Table Group, because you have yourself an organization, then we'll get into questions for what others are asking. But what is your message to them?
You know, the thing is, it's not a normal time. So let's come up with let's get productive within this normal time. But before we do that, so I wrote an email right when this started that said to leaders, this is the time to be a leader. If you're a leader, it's like, if you're like bummed out by this, I mean, we should be sad about it. But as a leader, this is why you're a leader. It's for times like this. And people are going to remember the way you handle this and how you lead them 10 times more than they'll remember anything from the old normal. And so the advice I give people is three things. First of all, be exceedingly human. This is not a time to be perfect. This is not a time to be falsely confident and on, like business as usual, be human. Let people see that you too are human, that you have concerns about your family and about the business and about that you're not different than they are. You're reading The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It talks about vulnerability as what breeds trust. And as a leader, if you're not saying, yeah, I have concerns myself and I have some challenges, people aren't going to trust you. So this is a time to be exceedingly human. And that means pour into their lives as well. I believe that we should always be pouring into the lives of the people that we lead. But the business culture sometimes says we're not supposed to. And that's just crazy. And during this time, it's particularly crazy. So
no, I love that, and I love the phrase that you used, but it said like the word you used to just not be human, but exceedingly human.
yes.
Double click on that for me. Like, can you give examples of like, well, what does that really mean for people to do?
Right. So in my team, we have people. I have kids in college right now, and their college career ended abruptly, and I have other people that have similar things in high school. And so when we talk about the struggle that we're going through with all this, they hear that from me and they go, "Oh my gosh, I'm feeling the same thing." Or having your whole family in a house together for this much time is fantastic, but it's also really challenging. And if they hear me say, "Man, I'm having a hard time getting through to one of my sons," and they're like, "Oh, you are too?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And we talk about that, and they're like, "Okay, so this is a place where I can be completely vulnerable. I can be human." And as a result of that, we grow closer together. We don't fall apart. I think that this is going to be a time of opportunity to get more cohesive or to drift apart. It's going to be one or the other. And if the leader is not exceedingly human, it's tough for people to grow closer together.
So as we just heard, the first three of the elements from Patrick is this idea of being exceedingly human. And as we think about leading in uncertain times, being exceedingly human can be a little bit difficult because it's not necessarily in direct relation with the way in which we operate in traditional business settings. But our team really felt that being exceedingly human ties very well into our philosophy. And so joining us today is Jen Savage, Director of Talent Management, and Jeff Nelson, Senior Development Partner. And to help each of us digest this information and apply it to our everyday lives, our team has put together a few reflection questions that we're going to talk through over the next few minutes. I've asked Jen and Jeff to provide their feedback and help us think through the ways in which they're going to apply this, but we'd love to hear from you. So please take some time and put your response to the first question in the comments below, and we'll continue on together. So Jen, the first question that we have is, what is something that has happened in your personal life since this season of COVID-19 began that you could be more vulnerable with your team about? And you're a manager, so you got some people that are reporting to you. I'm curious as to your perspective on this.
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing I would say probably that I have opened up with the team about, not just I make jokes that I'm a teacher now, as well as and I'm a single mom on top of it. So, and everyone knows that. So the juggling act of stay-at-home mom, teacher, and full-time career has really been a struggle. But my team has a bunch of other things going on. We have marriages happening, moves happening, we have babies happening. And so the great thing about that, and I look at it as a blessing, is a lot of it, we're getting to spend more time seeing them in real time in their environments, and being able to move, like watching people move and pack up and seeing how that's like a complete disruption, but it's bringing us all together. I would say also that the biggest thing for me is that my son is to graduate. He's the class of 2020. And it is really hard seeing that he was born 3 months before 9/11. And that gave me more time with him. And so that's been a blessing. That was a blessing then. And now I have basically the end of his senior year that I'm able to spend with him, which is also wonderful. However, I feel terrible for him that he's missing anything from senior skip day to prom to potentially his graduation, that my heart just bleeds for the class of 20. So I feel like all those are coming in, and I think that my team hears a lot about that. And I love getting to know all of their families, and they pop in and out. And I feel like it's like taking our families to work every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And as somebody who's, self-quarantining in my apartment, it's been really cool to see someone's dog or to see your kids come through. And it really bothers me when people apologize for that, because this is your everyday life. And it's done a great job of humanizing us. And it's refreshing me to see that. So good. Jeff, I'm curious as to your perspective on that. How do you talk to your peers about your personal life? Or are there ways in which you might be more vulnerable since we've heard this webinar and are thinking about, how being vulnerable helps build trust? Any thoughts there on how you work with your team?
Yeah, from my standpoint, whether it's a call, a text, even an email or a webinar, I'm thinking about how can I relate, how can I connect, and how can I listen? We all are facing similar challenges, whether it's just uncertainty or some challenges about health or the health of your family members, your close friends. And I think it's very important just to understand that when you're vulnerable, that's a great opportunity to build solid, long-lasting relationships. And it's a great time to build trust. So as we talked earlier, we're going to get through this, and we're going to be a much closer team after we all get back together. It's very ironic that our team is now closer than we've ever been. From my standpoint, and there's some other team members that have expressed that to me. We used to all sit within 60 feet of each other, and yet now we're sitting miles from each other, and we're having much deeper connections, better communication, and we're getting stuff done. I mean, we're managing a lot of projects together, and we're seeing a lot of success. So in a way, being apart has brought our team much closer together.
Yeah, I totally agree. Good. So the next question that we wanted to think through is, am I cultivating an atmosphere where my team can be exceedingly human? And I know that this can kind of feel like it's really aimed at managers, and in some ways it is. But at the same time, I think that, I and Jeff as peers on the same team can do quite a bit to make sure that we're both being open and being human with each other in the same ways in which we can look to Jen for some leadership in that space too. So Jeff, talk to me a little bit about what it looks like for you to be exceedingly human and how you make that atmosphere happen. You talked a little bit about listening and a little bit about empathy, but are there some things you're doing different in this distant space to make that come to life?
Yeah, I would say I am trying to focus more on being human and just connecting with the other folks that I work with, whether it's talking about challenges with noises while working from home, or as Jen mentioned, trying to be a teacher during the day as well, or if it's just uncertainty about what's going on in the world. I think we all have that in common, that we are just a little bit stressed right now, and you got some anxiety going on. And I think the more that you talk about that and bring that up with your peers, the more we all understand we're going through this together. And none of us have all the answers, right? Being vulnerable isn't about having all the answers. It's about admitting that you don't have all the answers and realizing we're all going to get through this challenge together.
Good. Good. And Jen, as a manager, I'm curious, any thoughts on what you're doing with your team to be exceedingly human? You've already started with that space, but tell me about kind of what that's looking like for you.
Well, we have, I think we've always had team meetings that we would have, folks in a room, but I don't know that we ever actually made the conscious effort to ask how they are doing. I make sure on every single phone call that we are talking about how they're doing personally. And I want them to know that it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be nervous. I'm as open and transparent as I can possibly be, and making sure that people feel comfortable and that they really know all that I do. So when we say we're going through this together, we're going through it together. So, but I am pulling together my team as often as I can without disrupting their work, and not making it so cumbersome, but they can at least see one another. And I also, right before we left and went out on this extended work from home, I told everyone that they had to keep their cameras on, and everyone hates it. And they hated it at first, I believe. Now I think everyone's used to it. But I am noticing in the other groups and the other calls, my team leaves their cameras on, and it was just my team. And now as the weeks go on, I'm noticing more and more shutters are opening. And so people are really craving to just see one another. So yeah, so I would say that pulling them together, and actually we have a lot of our initiatives and kind of what we were doing has changed. Our things that we thought were extremely important and had to get over the finish line are not as important right now. And so we've kind of taken our group and shaken it up like Yahtzee. And so that's been really awesome too, is that everybody, and every day I get at least one kudo about how happy they are to work with another individual on the team. So that's been fun. So, just trying to get everybody to interact. I mean, there's a meeting I'm not even invited to that my cohorts or my team that they do every morning, and it's kind of their coffee 15-minute cooler talk. So, and I encourage that. I want them to, and I also encourage them to walk away and be done at 5 or 5:30. So that's another thing. Like, just because it's here all the time doesn't mean that we should be here. So I'm making sure that I'm doing that as well.
Yeah, good. Thanks for sharing. Just like you said, it has been really fun to work with some new people and work with people in different ways than we have, even though we sat 60 feet apart, right? This has been a really great experience for us all. And I'm reminded of, this idea of the fact that after the crisis, people won't remember us for the spreadsheets we put together or the flowcharts we had and the projections that we made. They're really going to remember us for the ways in which we treated each other with empathy, compassion, and vision. And it's been, really made abundantly clear through this first idea of being exceedingly human, ways in which we can make that happen. And that's not to say that the quality of work doesn't matter or getting things done in a timely manner isn't important. But I think we've come to value each other much more as a team for the ways in which, we're adding value across the organization and the things that we have going on in our personal life. So it's been a very rich time. And I think that we've built a lot of trust via distance. And it all comes back to this idea of being exceedingly human. So Jen and Jeff, thank you for your time. Jen and Jeff would love to hear from you, and add your comments in the section below, or shoot any of us an email on what you took away from this conversation. We just love to hear on how this lands. I know that we'll be back in a short time with the second in this series. So thanks for watching, and we hope that you're well.